This is probably the most important part. Who do you need to get there? Who do you need to have on your team? What kind of relationships do you need to build? Who do you need to become? Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, as always, we got Matt Jones. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Todd?
I'm doing fantastic, man. It's been a fun beginning of the year so far. Yesterday, we went and toured a massive portfolio, nearly 600 units that we're going to take a stab at. We'll see. I just put an LOI in on another property, almost 400 units, and I think we're going to get it. We'll see. There's still a lot of, you got to go through due diligence, all that kind of stuff, get the PSA signed, everything like that. But I think there's a really good chance we're going to get this property. And then I just got a senior group home under contract again. So we got another deal coming. So I'm super excited. I got stuff coming down the pipeline.
Fantastic.
And look, man, we're still maintaining conservative numbers. So I feel pretty confident with these projects coming up. Of course, only one of them's under contract so far. So you can't count your money before you get it, right? You can't count the deals before you get them. But we're getting there. We're the most important part, if you want to be in this business, is to actually be making offers, actually be going through the right steps, right? The right process in order to get deals. Because believe it or not, you can't get deals if you don't put any effort into it.
That's fair.
That's fair, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Anything new with you, man?
Not much. Just I'm keeping on looking for deals right now, and I think things are getting closer between, there was this big divide between sellers and buyers of what sellers want to sell at versus what I could conservatively buy at. It seems like that's narrowing now.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. It for me, it's so deal dependent. I looked at a deal just the other week and it was off by like 25%. And now I got a couple deals. I'm like, wow, I'm actually in the ballpark. This is exciting. So it feels like it's a big, maybe it depends. So, but we still underwrite the deals and most of them we throw away, but a couple here and there you can keep and you can dig in. So
yeah, just keep the best ones.
Yep. Keep the best, get rid of the rest. That's what we do. So what are we talking about today, Matt?
Well, we're going to be talking about our multifamily series here. And where you got to start is by looking at your goals as well as understanding your story.
Right. So yeah, we'll be hitting here over the next, 13 to 15 to 18 to 20 weeks. I don't know how long this will take, but we're just going to talk about the entire process of buying a multifamily property. This will really relate to a lot of other asset classes, but it'll be definitely geared towards multifamily. So a lot of the steps, if you're interested in self-storage, mobile home parks, if you're interested in office, industrial, single family, a lot of the steps will be very similar, but what we're going to be really focusing on is multifamily. And when I want to define multifamily, because a lot of people think of a duplex as multifamily. I don't consider that multifamily. I'm talking about like a 20 plus unit building. Now it could be still a 10 unit. It could still be a duplex, but what we're specifically going to be really more focused on is probably more like that, even that 100 unit type building or bigger. So just so you know. So I think that'll be it's going to be fun, and there's a lot to talk about. So I'm going to try to dig into as much detail, and I can cut out the fat. And let's get into it. So first things first, right? We've got to understand, in my opinion, you've got to understand where you want to go, and you have to understand the strategies to get there. And so I get so many people that I talk to that we talk about, they say, I want to get in a multifamily. I want to buy some properties. And I say, great. What are you looking to do? and they say, well, I'm not sure yet. Okay. Well, let's get sure, right? How many units do you want to buy? Well, I don't know. Like, what kind of impact do you want to make? Well, I don't know. Okay. We got to get there. We got to get that clarity going. We have to really dig in, lean in, and understand what we're actually trying to achieve. That's going to be massive step one. Massive.
Yeah, a lot of people I think get stuck in that analysis paralysis stage
Mhm.
where they're just thinking and planning and learning but they don't actually like get the oomph to take it to the next level.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, look, first, I think the important part is you have to, well, first of all, you probably have to have a general basic knowledge, right? So you probably should start kind of reading and listening to podcasts. And obviously you're listening to podcasts, but reading, getting to know things, listening to audibles, you know, getting your base under you. It doesn't mean you can't write your goals and start your goal process until you know everything. But you want to know at least some of the basic strategies. And really, you kind of got to decide what the right strategy is for you. Real estate has a ton of strategies. I mean, look, you can even if I look, we're talking multifamily. Let's look in the multifamily world. We've got different unit sizes, right? We've got 200, 300, 500 unit buildings. We've got 5 unit building and everything in between. So there's so much there. And we've, again, like I said, a lot of people call a duplex and a fourplex multifamily. I guess it kind of is, but commercial multifamily is what I think of 5+ units. But, so there's so many strategies there. Are we going to buy a duplex? Are we going to buy a 20 unit? Are we going to buy a 200 unit? Are we going to buy a 500 unit or a portfolio? Then there's like, okay, so maybe I decided how many that I want to buy a bigger property. Why? First of all, why? Okay. And then next, like what kind of strategy? Am I going to buy a C class, a B class, an A class? Am I going to buy a core property, a core plus? Am I going to buy, value add? Am I going to buy a reposition? And we've talked about core plus, value add, reposition. Basically, it's the condition the building's in. The core is the best, reposition's the worst. We got the most amount of work. Okay. Am I going to be active? Am I going to be passive? Like, if I'm going to be active, am I going to do everything? Am I going to be a part of everything? I'm going to manage the property, or if I'm going to be passive, like how passive does that mean? What are my strengths and weaknesses? So we got to really like dive in and start thinking about stuff. We've got to learn some of the nuances of it, and it doesn't mean you have to know everything, right? We can know enough to be able to start actually taking action, right? I think that's really important. I don't want people to just get stalled in an analysis paralysis time frame, but we have to have enough knowledge to actually start moving the needle.
Yep, that's a great point. You don't want to just jump in without knowing what the heck you're doing. You're going to make all of the mistakes and lose a lot of money potentially in the process.
Yeah.
But if you have a core base of understanding and knowledge, then you can start with the next steps.
Yeah, it really helps with your goals too, right? I mean, it really helps you understand. So, goal setting has a lot to do with where do you actually want this to take you? Okay, everybody's got a different reason for this. So where do you actually want this to take you? Matt, why do you want to do multifamily? Why do you want to have your own business? Why do you want to make the amount of money you've set out to make and have the net worth that you've set out to have?
Because I want the freedom and the financial ability to make the world a better place by helping people become the best versions of themselves, and really supporting people with disabilities as well. So
Yeah.
That's my ultimate why. And the vehicle for that is multifamily because it makes a lot of sense to me. I understand the numbers. So that's how I get to my why.
So, I mean, there you go. And there's a strong why. And it's maybe even more helpful to even dig in farther. So why does Matt really want to help people? Like, why is that important to him? And so Matt can ask that question, like, why is that important? And I can't remember what book it was. I think it was Dean Graziosi's book. He talks about digging 7 layers deep into your why, So, okay, well, Matt maybe has an answer why he wants to help people, but why is that important? And then why is that important? And continue to dig deep and really get at the core of why you're doing what you're doing. Because one of the biggest reasons, and everybody's heard the why part, right? We got to know our why. Oh, and I think one of the biggest reasons though for that is the motivation factor. Things are going to get tough. Like you get slapped around in this business. Look, probably the toughest thing right now, at least in my opinion, is finding deals right now. Sometimes it's not that easy to find money. Sometimes it's not that easy to find deals. Sometimes it's not that easy to find contractors. Sometimes it's not that easy to, X, Y, or Z. There's always seasons, and you've got to be able to fight through that. You're going to have difficult times. Like people right now that are trying to get started in this business, the hardest thing is that there's just not a ton of deals out there that work. That can get depressing. That can get like, this sucks. I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm going to go back to doing something else. But you don't have a strong enough why, right? And so you get a challenge, right? Something happens, something big maybe even happens. You have a ton of money at risk, whatever it might be. You lose a bunch of money. Is your why strong enough to push you through, to figure out, okay, how am I going to pivot? So that's really important. And quite frankly, if you're taking investors like what I do, that's really important, right? Because we want to make sure, are you going to pivot? Are you going to take care of your investors if things go wrong? Like, what are you going to do? So you got to know why you're doing this. Things will not always be easy.
And just to make money is not a strong enough why. And I think it's a good thing that real estate isn't easy, because if it was easy, then everyone would be doing it.
Well, it wouldn't be profitable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that's easy is just not, it's just not profitable, or at least not profitable for very long, right? You might get lucky and get into something that's really easy, but everybody else finds out about it pretty quickly. So once you really have dug into that why, we want to then dig into, okay, what are my ultimate goals? Like, what do I want to achieve, and how is that going to get me to my ultimate why? So we want to know what our vision is, and then we want to know, why is your goal really important? Okay, and we want to know what we need to do to get there. So again, what's your ultimate goal? Why is that goal important? What do you need to get there? And really, you got to think about the what is and the who. Hey, real quick, I just want to let you know about the multifamily challenge that we got going on. It's a 5-day multifamily challenge on how to get an offer in quickly, right? So we're going to teach you in 5 days, 5 1-hour sessions. We're going to go through the steps and the process to get there. So go to mfichallenge.com, mfichallenge.com. You can sign up. It's free if you want the VIP. There's a bunch of things that we'll give away too. You do have to pay for that, but hey, it's going to be well worth it. Again, you can get in for free. We're going to teach you how to get that offer across the table, get the LOI in, all the steps. So Ellis Hammond and Ellis was episode 316. Check out his episode. And we're going to be doing this next week. So sign up now at mfichallenge.com, and get in there. We're doing it next week, and it's going to be awesome. So hope to see you there. So we're looking at, what kind of education do you need? What kind of money do you need? What kind of time you need? And then the last part is the who. And this is probably the most important part. Who do you need to get there? Who do you need to have on your team? What kind of relationships do you need to build? Who do you need to become? Right? Who do you need to be around? That's really important. So I think that's valuable. to break your goals down more than just what's my goal, what and why. We got to really then start to dig in. Where am I currently at? What's my education? What kind of education do I need? What's my relationships? What kind of relationships do I need? And so on.
Exactly. You start with the end in mind, and then you break it down into achievable action steps.
Right. And then, we have already talked about it. If you're educated and you probably need to continue to get more educated, but we can then talk about what are the options? What are your options to actually get there? So if you come in to me and say, I want to have 2,000 units under my company, what's that going to look like? Does that mean you're having 2,000 units and you're going to own them 100% free and clear? You're going to own them with a loan, 75% loan to value? Or are you going to own them with partners, with investors? Or are you going to own them passively? You're just going to be a passive investor, and you can invest 200 grand into every deal or 50 grand into every deal or whatever it might be. How are you going to get there? Right? Are you going to be finding the deals? Are you going to be funding the deals? What are you going to be doing? So options to get there, really important. And then your timeline, right? Well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, number of units. I think not many people talk about how that's really an arbitrary thing. Like
it is.
If someone says like, "Oh, I own 2,000 units," well, do you own all of those yourself, or do you own like 0.01% of those 2,000 units? That's not many units.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I've talked about that before. People will get up and say, hey, yeah, we've got 2,000 units, assets under management. And well, what's that mean? Do you own 10% of the general partnership? Do you own 50% of the general partnership? Do you own 1% of the general partnership? It looks a lot different, right? On some of my properties, I own 100% of the general partnership. Well, even though that's only, maybe let's call it 200 units, I own 100% of the general partnership. When somebody else will say, well, I've got 2,000 units and they own 10% of the general partnership. Well, is there a difference there, right? We've both probably got about the same amount of units currently under management, technically, right? If you break it down, but that number for that person sounds way bigger. So what does it look like? What's your option to get there? Again, and there's no right or wrong answer, right? If you've got 2,000 units and you own 10% of the general partnership, that's an accomplishment. But you have to understand what that actually looks like. It's a big difference than owning 100% of the general partnership. It's a huge difference versus owning 100% of the property, right? If it's just you and you own that entire property with maybe a bank loan at 70% loan to value, well, that looks totally different than somebody that owns 2,000 units but owns 10% of a general partnership that's got an 80-20 split. So timeline, I think, is really important too. Make sure that your timeline's not too tight to where it's impossible to achieve your goals, but make sure it's not too far apart to where you're really limiting yourself and you're really not pushing yourself hard enough, right? So I think that's really important. And a lot of people I see go both ways. I see people say, I'm going to buy X amount of units this year, and I'm going to do it by doing this, this, and this. And it's like, okay, that's great. Are you sure you can do it? Because you haven't done anything yet. And I don't want to discourage people, but sometimes we have to have reality too. And I see other people that say, I just want to buy a duplex this year. And I go, okay, that's great, but can we do more? Right. And so we want to look at what do we actually have time for, right? That comes with that time allotment. What do we actually have knowledge about right now? Who are our relationships? All that kind of stuff. What are our options to get there? And can we complete this in a specific timeline?
Yeah, a couple of books I found really useful in discovering my why and really ironing that out is both by Simon Sinek, and that's Start with Why and Find Your Why.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, both. I haven't. Which one? I think I read Start with the Why. Start with your Why. Is that whatever it's called? But
Yep, Start
yeah,
with Why.
Start with Why. Yeah, good book, definitely. Um, really digging in. I think it's so important, and so many people kind of gloss over that, and don't. Yeah, because it's kind of like the fluffy stuff, right? It's it's the mindset thing, but it's so valuable. I used to like Matt, man. You would have asked me like 20 years ago about half the stuff I talk about. I've been like, whatever, I don't believe in the hocus pocus of mindset and that type of stuff. But now as I've done this business, I realize, man, it plays a crucial role in people's success. And especially as I'm mentoring people, they're joining my program and I'm teaching them and just listening to their mindset and listening to the things they say and the podcast too, like talking with other people. There's just a massive difference in mindset and then the success that you find that some of these people have with that mindset. So you can't discount the power of you know your why, your mindset, and how you can achieve this stuff.
Exactly. I akin it to if you don't have your why in the forefront of your mind, then I think of it as sort of wandering around in the dark. Maybe you'll get to a better destination, but just by luck.
All good stuff. One of the things that Matt, once you get all this stuff down, right? So we've talked about kind of like four, maybe five, maybe more, but we've talked about several main things, right? What's your ultimate goal, and then the steps. Why is your goal important? Where are you currently at? And when we talk about that, we're talking about your education, your relationships, financially, and the time that you have available and the time that you can have available. What are your options to get there? Number three. And then what's your timeline? Number four. And I think the fifth one, this might be the most important one other than your why and the ultimate goal is what are the key action steps you need to take in order to execute this? That's really important. So what are the key action steps that you actually need to take? And I don't want 75 action steps, right? We want, 5, maybe even less than that. What are the key action steps? What do we actually need to be doing? And then, you know, once you have that, you've got a roadmap. You know where to go. I think what's really important too is understanding really your story, your limitations, your mindset, and then figuring out ways to work on that mindset, work on the limiting beliefs that you have. What do you feel like why can't you do it right now? Why today can you not buy a 200 unit apartment building? If that's your goal, why can't you? Why can't you buy a 200 unit apartment building today? What's your limiting belief? Right? And you need to start working on that stuff, right? You need to start understanding what your limiting beliefs are. That helps you execute. That helps you take those steps.
Yeah, and we've talked about before. My own limiting beliefs have been the thing that has held me back more than anything else.
Right. Right. Yeah, mine too. Mine too. I mean, when I look at my journey and I look at where I began, um, fairly slowly. Again, very limiting belief that I couldn't do anything other than like a single family and duplex, to very much limited belief that I couldn't buy 100 unit, that I needed to somehow graduate. Very limited belief that I couldn't get financing for these properties, and until I stumbled upon a single bank that gave me financing, I didn't understand it. And once that door opened up, I was able to then call 100 more banks and get financing lined up for a bunch of properties. So there's just very many steps along the way where it was like these paradigm shifts, and that's going to happen, and allow that to happen naturally and be open for it too. You've got to have that open mindset. You've got to be able to accept some of these challenges and figure out how to get beyond them. And always be growing, always be looking for, okay, how do I expand this thing? How do I grow this thing? How do I push the boundary just a little bit farther?
Excellent.
Your vision board's going to always change. I don't know, mine has changed drastically since the day that I started. It's going to continue to change. I know it, but that's the exciting part.
Exactly. You're always moving the needle a little bit farther,
Yep.
Yep.
And just because you say you're going to passively invest in properties doesn't mean you can't start actively investing in properties. Just because you actively invest in properties doesn't mean you can't start passively investing. Just because you're doing multifamily doesn't mean you can't all of a sudden do mobile home parks. People, you can shift, you can grow, seasons change. So cool. Matt, so next week we'll dive into, how do we actually begin this journey? How do we actually begin with buying multifamily properties? Again, we're going to be talking about larger multifamily properties. So if you want to know how you start buying a 100-unit apartment complex, Matt and I, we're going to tell you how starting next week.
Sounds good. I look forward to it.
All right, man. You take care and make every day Saturday. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.